Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, and it's the morning after yet another presidential debate I couldn't find the time to watch. I decided last night that I'm going to pledge my vote for president to the person who manages to find more time in a day, because there's just so much going on, it seems like, and there's always so much more life coming at me than I have time to drink. I'm sure you feel the same way, and the reason you come to Law and Legitimacy every morning is you want to see what Mike and I have filtered out of experience to offer up for your consideration so that you don't have to watch it either. Well, here, I haven't yet seen, but I hear it's great, the interview between Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones. And I wanted to speak out today about Alex Jones. Tucker, obviously, as you all know, has been canned from Fox, and he's doing his own thing and producing these fascinating interviews with compelling figures. Fox was at one point threatening to sue, and it hasn't happened. I don't know what's happened. He apparently had some sort of non-compete clause with them. They could have sued to try to silence him. They haven't. There have been no reports on this litigation or controversy. I don't know whether he's given money back. I don't know what sort of peace he's entered into with Tucker. But he did interview Jones. I think the interview took place 2-3 months ago, so I remember hearing about it from Alex. And apparently it's on, and it's got a hell of a headline. Jones basically called 9/11 weeks or months before and got a lot of the details right. And ever since then, the government's been out to destroy Jones. Why is that? I think of Alex Jones as continuously relevant for the following reasons. Narratives shape our lives. In other words, there's so much coming at each of us. We have to make choices about what to read, what to consume, and then we respond to what we read and consume, each in our own idiosyncratic ways. Each person's confrontation with the world is an expression of that person's desire to find a place in the world, to find meaning in the world. And we're all looking for broader points of view. And what conspiracy theorists offer us is a take on seemingly randomly connected dots that offer meaning and direction about tendencies in the world in which we live. There's not a person alive. I doubt there's not artificial intelligence sufficient to capture the complexity of all of experience. Immanuel Kant once called it the manifold of experience. Those of you who read philosophy will, of course, remember the Critique of Pure Reason.
Hold on a second. The manifold. How many millennials and down will even understand what the hell that means?
I'm going to explain it to you now. So you've got this thing in your head called a mind. And you've got this sense of vitality in your body.
Slow down. We have a what? We have a what in our head? What is that?
A mind. Okay, so we're doing the Wizard of Oz thing today with the thoughts. I've been thinking I could be another Lincoln if I only had a brain. Well, welcome to Law and Legitimacy, where the Scarecrow, Mike Boyer, and the nerd, Norm Pattis, try to explain the world to you. How are you this morning, Scarecrow? How's that noggin of yours today? Knock, knock. Anything in there? Anything in there but straw? So Immanuel Kant's critical philosophy took the position that the mind, the thing that we have inside of us, helps organize the impressions that we have in the world. And there are certain things in the human mind that don't come from experience. They are there before experience. They are what he called the synthetic a priori. Things that help us synthesize or bring together the world of perceptions and experience in ways that make it intelligible to us. And so there's space. We have a perception of space. We have a perception of time. We have a perception of causation and numerous other things. And this helps us orient what we know and what can be known. And Kant famously said, we never really know things in themselves. I'm looking at the microphone into which I'm speaking, and I have a perception of that microphone located in space. It has a stable appearance over time, and I can manipulate it in ways that suggest it responds to my will. Great, but I don't know the microphone in and of itself. And so we're left in a world of appearances, and all that we can really know is how we can construct those appearances. We also are left with questions that we can't help but ask, that are the nature of our place in the universe and our destiny and so forth. And so in terms of our practical judgments, we come to a sense of God, we come to a sense of freedom, we come to a sense of immortality. Complicated Thoughts. These are two long books. The first summarized in the Critique of Pure Reason, the second is the Critique of Practical Reason. But the point is that whatever it is that we are, we thinking things, we things of spiritual substance, we crave meaning, and narratives are a way in which we provide meaning. And most of us in our workaday lives are task-oriented. I'm a criminal defense lawyer.
Well, Norm, if I may, so just to bring this hypercurrent with the 7-second clip ideology that we live in, that's the mimetic value, right? That is describing what we perceive today, or at least we qualify in language or linguistically as memes, right? That is,
that's right.
Meaning.
Yeah, there's signals, there's signaling devices that grant meaning to the manifold of experience. Now Jones does a little bit more. I've gotten to know him pretty well. It'll be 5 years that I've been representing him in March of 2024. And I've gotten to know he and his father quite well. And his father describes him even as a child as precocious on every dimension. And I think what Alex brings to the world is a commitment to the broadest possible understanding of the trends that he perceives, and the trends that are in fact real. Trends about control of the economy, trends about control of information, trends about control of access to goods and services. And he then talks about these tendencies and trends and asks, who's in control, who benefits, who's directing them? And he focuses his attention on groups like the World Economic Forum or individuals like Klaus Schwab, who seek and desire to harness these tendencies in order to create a better world. And so Alex Jones is on the frontier of that. He does so without an academic degree or an academic institution behind him. And he created this station called InfoWars, where he is committed to the proposition that you can be empowered to understand these trends yourself. And by understanding these trends, you can achieve a critical distance from those who seek to control you. And maybe you'll make something of your lives and do something with your freedom. Maybe you won't. And so I think when Jones, foresaw the tendency of the Arab world to be hostile to the West because of our involvement with Israel and the fall of the World Trade Center and what the World Trade Center represented, was that a blind clock being right once every one of those 2 times each day that it is? Or did he have an intuition that this was possible?
Let's listen to this 14-second clip, Norm. I think it brings a little more color. I'm going to play it.
Everything that Jones does brings more color.
Chiefs of staff wanted to blow up airliners, Baltimore Sun, or if you let some terrorist group do it, like the World Trade Center, we know who to blame. And if there was an outside threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s, he's the boogeyman they need. We know the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to blow up airliners, Baltimore Sun.
Is that not insane, Norm? This is July 25th, 2001.
I don't know. I mean, when you talk to Alex, a lot of people talk to Alex. He's got an incredible network of people that he talks to and that talk to him. And I think what he is he's an empathic and an intuitive genius who is able to, what's that old, saying, you don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind is blowing. I mean, he is a sort of existential weatherman in terms of social trends. Unfortunately, he got tagged with the Sandy Hook thing, and everybody thinks of him as a Sandy Hook man. That's just a small tip, not even of the iceberg that is the man. He remains an almost Jeremiah-like prophet in our times, who's able to look at what ails us and say, beware, 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 there's chaos coming. So I commend folks, the Tucker Carlson interview of Alex with you, to you rather. I'll be watching it someday when time permits. And I have the privilege of, having all constant contact with Alex and appreciate his insight. I also understand the sense of scorn and revulsion that he inspires in many people. And I just can't help but wonder why. Why do we kill prophets? We kill prophets because they tell us truths that make us uncomfortable. Alex Jones remains relevant, perhaps more relevant now than ever, because now more than ever, we actually stand in a world where big data and artificial intelligence might make it possible for people to manipulate the world in larger, grand narrative ways that were never before imaginable. So while we're on Jonestown, it's one way to refer to InfoWars. Owen Shroyer is due to be released from federal prison tomorrow. At least that was the expectation as of yesterday. I continue daily to check the Bureau of Prisons website, run his name on the inmate locator service, and there it says, release date 12/8. But yesterday afternoon, I got a disturbing call from a reporter at Newsweek, or a disturbing email from a reporter at Newsweek. And so I returned it because what bothered me is, Owen is locked up in jail, and part of his punishment for speaking out on the telephone in jail was he's being deprived of access to computers, and he's being deprived of direct access to the external world. I've had very limited telephone contact with him. I know there's another lawyer doing some work for him that's had limited contact. I don't know if he's able to make personal calls, and if he's making them, who he's making them to. But I get a call from Newsweek. Could I comment on the meaning of this? And hold it right there, Mike, because there's the quote. Go down, scroll down just a second, please. Scroll down. Okay, well, anyhow.
This is Shroyer's lawyer, Norm Pattis, told him.
Go up, I guess. That's what I meant. Okay, now there. So the question I get from Newsweek is, what did Owen mean when he said this? And quote, I have never been more driven or purpose-filled in all my life, the Post stated. A previously unknown force within me has been ignited. May God have mercy upon my enemies, because I won't. And so Newsweek thought, well, what did he mean by that? And of course, my response to Newsweek was, I don't even know that he said it. And I don't know how he could have said it. Owen doesn't have access in prison to a Twitter account. As far as I can tell, he doesn't even have the means to direct other people to post for him on Twitter. And my fear is that somebody managing his social media account got a letter from him and construed something he wrote, and wrote this for Owen. The concern I have is that given the hypersensitive manner in which J6 defendants are being managed inside, and Owen in prison, and Owen in particular, that prison officials are going to view this as some sort of threat, or as some sort of, as Newsweek refers it, some sort of ominous post that requires further monitoring and perhaps interferes with Owen's release date. So I don't know who is managing Owen's social media account, but I am asking you, if you're listening to this, to be careful what you wish for. It may be that you want to ascribe prophetic statements to Owen at this point. I don't think it's the time. Let him get out of prison and let him speak for himself.
I agree, and I think I saw this post before it was deleted. It just coming through our timeline earlier yesterday after our stream, and I think the first half or first 2/3 of this are totally fine in my opinion. I think that what the issue is that this patent quote is different, right? And in the world that you're describing, and in the context of this, of all of this, this is what allows Newsweek the wiggle room to call you, Norm. You know?
Well, I thought it was kind of crazy, and they weren't going to not run a story at that point. I would have wished that they didn't, because again, it's just not clear to me that that's Owen speaking. And if it is, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. What does that mean? That means come Judgment Day, presumably he'll have something to say. But in the overheated mind of prosecutors taking on J6 cases, this is the sort of language that they would read, conspiratorial intent into, and we just don't need more of that stuff. So Owen, or Owen wannabe, if you're listening to this, Owen will be out tomorrow. Let him do his own talking. Owen is a force, and I'm sure that the time inside has been spiritually revealing to him. Knowing Owen as well as I do, I'm sure he made good use of the time. And I am looking forward to hearing what he has to say, what he's learned about himself, the world, and what spiritual insights he's garnered after a couple months off, so to speak.
Likewise, Norm, may I ask that we take a quick detour and
Yeah.
instead of talking about the debates, we wanted to talk about attorney ethics all
Oh,
week
yeah.
and hadn't really had a great opportunity. You sent me this article from the New Haven Independent this morning, and this is the representative case that you introduced to us late last week, which is
Yeah.
you on behalf of an attorney, a very, very well-known and prolific attorney there in New Haven, Connecticut, who is facing suspension of his bar license. Yes.
Yes, it's Richard P. Silverstein. Rick's a 66-year-old force of nature with the energy of a 36-year-old. And he's controversial. Those of you familiar with the noir literary version or genre, the dark version, I refer to him as Rick Noir, New Haven Noir. You see him in court. Rick, how are you this morning? I'm fine. How are you? He just kind of chews gravel and spits his teeth out and says, I can still gnaw on your ass. And he gets fantastic results for his clients, and he has over the years. But his law license has been suspended effective tomorrow. I succeeded last night. I got a ruling from the appellate court staying that suspension for a brief period while the appellate court reviews the trial court's decision to deny him a stay pending appeal. As we first reported the case, some of the things we reported are wrong. Here are the facts that support the suspension. Rick, all lawyers are required to keep what's called an interest-bearing account, an IOLTA account, at least in Connecticut. And that's where you deposit your client funds. If for whatever, and because they're not your funds, our regulators want to make sure you're protecting the assets of third parties, your clients and others. If a check bounces in an IOLTA account, our regulators get informed of that by the bank because you're not there. That creates questions in the regulators' minds about what you're doing with that third party funds.
Yeah, well, and IOLTA accounts, Norm, these are client trust accounts that attorneys set up with the bank. IOLTA accounts are very tightly and heavily regulated. They're reporting and all sorts of other affirmative requirements that are incumbent upon attorneys to maintain. None of the money that is in these trust accounts is the property of the attorney, typically, right? Until it is earned. Such that attorney funds or firm funds may not be commingled into these accounts. So the backdrop of the IOLTA conversation is a very sensitive one, but I think the facts of this case make a mockery of that.
So Rick had a check for $250 bounce in 2019. The bank notified the bar notified Rick, give us an explanation. He didn't. He was grieved. In other words, an attack was launched on his license. The bar committee reviewing his failure to respond asked for a response. He didn't respond then. So he got reprimanded. In other words, got a slap on the wrist, and he was told to submit to an audit of his IOLTA account. He didn't. And so now he's been presented to a superior court for discipline. Chief Disciplinary Counsel in Connecticut, that is the top lawyer cop who oversees the discipline of lawyers, is a man named Brian Staines. Brian represented the judicial branch before the court, in this case, Judge Fisher. You can see his photograph up there in the upper right. And Brian Staines, Chief Disciplinary Counsel, recommended a reprimand because, hey, it's 2023. Rick did not respond in a timely manner. He was wrong. He deserved some punishment. Judge Fisher said, no, I'm going to suspend him for a year. And the reasoning that Judge Fisher used was candidly shocking, in my view, and repugnant. Rick has had several bumps in the disciplinary road. He was reprimanded at numerous times in 2000, 2003, 2005. He was arrested. He had a struggle with narcotics addiction for a while in early 2000s, I think 2005. He was permitted to remain at the bar subject to conditions. He was suspended on or around 2007 for 6 months. And in 2011, he had another reprimand. In other words, 12, 13 years ago, up to 20 years plus years ago, he had difficulties with the bar. Judge Fisher said in his written decision, a person with a disciplinary record like that, one would think, would crawl on their hands and knees to give bar regulators what they want. And the notion that any judge in the United States would think a defense lawyer should crawl on his hands and knees into a courtroom or before a tribunal for any purpose in order to keep his license suggests to me a warped perspective on what the courts are all about. Judges are there to assure that parties get fair trials, and certainly bar regulators are there to make sure that a lawyer is not taking advantage of his client and is capable of doing his job. Rick is capable of doing his job. He's won his last 5 or 6 criminal cases in Southern Connecticut, often against impossible odds. He just won another case the other day, a violation of probation proceeding. There is no question that he's capable of doing his job. He's no threat to the public. The $250 check bounced as a result of an administrative oversight. It's been corrected. No one lost a dime. It occurred 4 years ago. To use an ancient disciplinary history and reach the conclusion that Silverstein its conduct over the years has been abhorrent, and therefore the public needs protecting from him, is, in my opinion, a grotesque abuse of the court's discretion to regulate the bar. The United States Supreme Court recognizes that each individual in the United States has a right to counsel, and that's the counsel of choice. The lead case in this case arises either in 2005 or 2007. It's called United States of America versus Gonzalez-Lopez. In that case, the court had reservations about an attorney's ethical conduct and deprived Mr. Gonzalez-Lopez of that lawyer's services at a criminal trial. Justice Antonin Scalia wrote an opinion for the majority of the court, basically saying that the right to counsel and to counsel of choice is fundamental, and that the trial court abused its discretion by depriving Gonzalez-Lopez of counsel of choice on a flimsy disciplinary pretext and reversed the conviction. I don't know whether, I don't know what will happen in the Silverstein case. Silverstein has nettled a lot of judges. In other words, he's needled a lot of judges over the years. He's cantankerous, he's defiant, but he believes passionately in the United States Constitution, and he fights like an animal for his client. And that's exactly what you would expect a lawyer to do. If he doesn't always show respect for the bar or for the courts, I'm not sure that's a problem. I'm not sure how much respect the judiciary is owed. There is no requirement that we kiss the hem of the robe when we walk into a courtroom. And while there are customs that you refer to judges as Your Honor, by the way, I've only done that once in my career. They're judges. This isn't England. I don't want, in appellate advocacy, lawyers typically stand up and say, may it please the court. I've never uttered those words in an appellate court in hundreds of arguments. I don't give a damn whether my presence pleases the court or not. I'm here to argue my client's case, and your job, judge, as the umpire, is to call it according to law. I'm not there to please the court. I'm not there to flatter you by referring to you as Your Honor. You're a judge, and I'll refer to you as judge. And so, I know Judge Fisher. I respect Judge Fisher. I've appeared before Judge Fisher, but I can't help but wonder whether this is payback to Silverstein because he's pushed back so hard against the judiciary. There's another grievance pending involving another judge, a colleague of Fisher's. I believe they have lunch together frequently. In that case, I represented Silverstein, and the judge was complaining that Silverstein had too many cases, that he was late to court from time to time, and that this didn't show a respect for the judiciary. I wrote back a very harsh response. But what respect does the judiciary show to the bar? You get a 9 o'clock calendar call, you're waiting around till 10, 11 o'clock to get out of court. And if I'm late and you happen to get on the bench, I'm in trouble. If you're late, I'm supposed to wait and say, suck it up, buttercup. I mean, we're all struggling with limited resources to deal with the human tragedies that underlie criminal cases. And our clients are calling the shots. We go to trial or not based on whether the clients can accept the pleas that we can negotiate for them. And all lawyers are required to engage in plea bargaining. If we can't bring back an acceptable option, we go to trial. And when you go to trial, it's an adversarial contest. And the claim is that in an adversary, that is the best way to determine the truth. If both sides struggle and fight one another, loyal only to their clients, there'll be a fair trial, assuming that you've got a judge that's ready, willing, able, and capable of rendering judgments, sound judgments on the case. We recognize judges' error, which is why we have appellate courts. And there are frequently reversals of convictions because trial judges got it wrong. So in the case of, disciplinary counsel versus Richard P. Silverstein, I represent Silverstein, and Silverstein was wrong. you know, he knows he was wrong. He got up in front of the court and apologized. He didn't attend to the jots and tittles of the law, and as a result, he has some discipline coming. But a suspension for a year is an overreaction. And I bring this case to your attention in part because I hurt for Richard Silverstein, in part because I hurt for Southern Connecticut, in part because I hurt for the defense bar, which if it doesn't rally behind lawyers in circumstances like that and push back, will just encourage the judges to think of themselves as something other than umpires and to begin to move the system towards an inquisitorial system in which judges manage the litigation. Judges do not manage litigation. I once had a judge refer to the lawyers in the courtroom as her lawyers, and she was going to protect them. Judge, you don't own me. I don't owe you anything but the respect that you earn and the respect that you have coming to you as a result of your role. But to suggest some maternalistic or paternalistic or managerial role of the court over the conduct of lawyers is repellent. And so in the Silverstein case, I'm flattered and honored to be able to represent him. I can't wait to get his case in front of the appellate court, and if necessary, the Supreme Court will report more on this as events develop.
It's me again on Rumble. Says the state going after dissenting doctors and lawyers the last couple of years. State licensure needs to be eliminated. I think that last sentence is something that I don't agree with. I think that the issue is necessarily the consolidation or this sort of groupthink, sort of the madness of crowds, so to speak, that we have witnessed over the last couple of years, Norm, especially in the medical field, and I think we're seeing the same thing in the legal field. The legal field has been, rife with this for many years, the ABA, et cetera. But it is the case that many lawyers and many physicians these days just want to, go along to get along. But the problem with that is necessarily that law in particular is a self-governing profession, self-regulating profession. I think it's perfectly acceptable that states have their licensure requirements. I think is something separate to understand that lawyers they are obligated to govern themselves, right? And to uphold that dynamic norm that you were just discussing.
Yeah, I hear you, and I'm of two minds about what you've just said. I mean, I worry about antitrust problems and so forth, and any time that there's a regulated profession, I don't, I think the public needs to know that, and I always say, people say, what's the bar exam like? I said, the bar exam's a pain in the butt. And it all it really does is it prepares you to hang up your shingle, and it assures the public that once your shingle's up, you're minimally competent to recognize what it is they're talking about when they walk in the door. Oh, that's a breach of contract, not a tort claim. Oh, that's a matter of constitutional law, not a matter of administrative law. And those distinctions matter. And so I suppose there is a role of assuring the public that when they walk into a lawyer's office, that lawyer is minimally competent to discuss their problems with them and at least determine what kind of problem it is and what kind of help they need. But when I see the bar and bar regulators assuming a regulatory role, or when I see them acting in defense of their own inherent authority at the expense of a lawyer's right to practice law, I shudder. Because the courts are basically where we go to resolve disputes, and that's all they are. And there's no question that Attorney Silverstein is perfectly capable of managing his clients' cases in courtrooms. The results speak for themselves. He might be the most successful criminal lawyer in Connecticut, and I am bothered by the targeting of Attorney Silverstein in Connecticut, and can't help but wonder whether it's because he's been so effective.
Well, and yeah, I think that what you said regarding antitrust is important to me as well. I think that is a very valid concern. I think my biggest thing is necessarily that clients are the main event, as we know, both in the criminal and in the business context. And without effective lawyers and without a bar that will stand up for those lawyers and their advocacy on the behalf of clients, the worse off the entire industry is. And as such, I see no reason to think that we could recreate the system that we enjoy state to state without some sort of top down or monopolistic state to state system of licensing, as it were, Norm.
Hey, happy Pearl Harbor Day. And those of you who are listening from Connecticut know Willie Dow's birthday is today. Tora, Tora, Tora. I send Willie a text message to that effect every year. What was it? 83 years ago today, there was a sneak attack on Pearl Harbor, and the nation mobilized, and the world was engulfed in a war, a world war, the Second World War, the last major global conflict, taking millions and millions of life. There aren't many veterans still alive from that conflict. But if you are a veteran, thank you for your service. If you're a veteran of a lesser conflict or a conflict, well, that's a horrible thing to say. If you're a veteran of a conflict that took fewer lives along the way and didn't get the name World War X, Y, or Z, thank you. It is a fearsome thing to place your life on the line for your country and defense of your values. Pearl Harbor Day is a good moment to pause, find a veteran in your community, buy the guy or woman a cup of coffee and say, thank you for your service. They're simple words, but the life that we live, we shouldn't take for granted. As events unfold around the world daily, we see that we're under attack because of who we are. And that there are plenty of people who want what we have and would take it from us if they could, or seek to dilute it so that we couldn't enjoy it out of a sense of resentment. I'm not going to go so far as to praise American exceptionalism. I'm not sure we're all that exceptional, but this is my country, and I'm proud to live in it, and I'm thankful to the men and women who've offered their sacrifice and their service on my behalf. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. And we've got several veterans in the chat, both the angry dogs, of course.
There's Patrick. I wasn't thanking you guys. I see Pat Clifton, the other angry dog. You're welcome, Norm. I wanted to thank all the veterans except Pat Clifton, the other angry dog. Pat, in your case, you probably served as a result of a diversionary program. They probably found you with your hands in the cookie jar or perhaps the panties of a classmate and said, look, you can go risk getting your legs blown off in another pointless war declared by bureaucrats who are clueless and are defending oil, big pharma, and other interests that don't care for the little guy. But you can exonerate yourself. You've got a choice. You can either go to prison and serve with Bubba, or you can go and risk getting your legs blown off. That's hardly something to be thanked for in your case, Pat. But the rest of you veterans, thank you for your patriotic service. I salute you. It's just Pat Clifton, the other angry dog, that I won't acknowledge.
We'll get to this tomorrow. I know we're running short on time here, but did want to acknowledge this and also acknowledge Justin Carta for always putting this stuff into our timeline on X and begging our attention to the topic. This the complaint here is fairly robust, Norm. I think it's about 67 pages long. And not to out us for lacking attention or bandwidth, but we do lack attention and bandwidth during the day as things go on. We have to play lawyer after this on our respective sides. But this is something that I'll read. It's interesting to me that the Daily Wire is a plaintiff in this alongside the Attorney General of Texas in suing the Department of State and Secretary Blinken. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow.
Yeah, no, it's a great suit. I mean, I scanned it quickly this morning after you brought it to my attention yesterday, and I was busy representing people like Attorney Silverstein yesterday. But apparently, there's something, the Global Engagement Center in the State Department, which in the efforts to combat disinformation or to assure that the world gets the right images of this, the best of all possible worlds, also known as the United States. It places content-based restrictions on communications. And according to Attorney General Paxton, and I think he's right, that might be content-based restrictions in violation of the First Amendment. So I'm looking forward to this litigation and looking forward to learning more about it.
Likewise, Norm. Time to get to work.
Oh, really? All right. Hey, folks. So listen, if you happen to be in Connecticut, turn out at the Mohegan Sun Casino tonight, 10 o'clock. I'll be performing together with others stand-up comedy, because after all, if you can't laugh about it, you're going to cry about it, and laughing's more fun than crying. Thanks for listening to Law and Legitimacy. We'll be back for another fabulous Friday tomorrow. Mike, how do people find us?
We're on X every day at LawPod Daily. Please follow us there. Share our posts, repost them, comment on them. Tell us we're dumb. Tell us we're smart. Leave an LOL or an emoji, whatever you want to do. You can also find us on YouTube and Rumble live 8 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. And if you don't catch us live, you can always find us on those same platforms after the fact for replay. But you can also subscribe to our podcast, audio only, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Overcast, Audible, wherever you find podcasts. Make sure you're subscribed over there. Leave us 5 stars and a nice comment, or leave us alone. Norm, we will see you in the morning.
You will. Ciao.